welcome to Parent University Winter Break Edition. My name is Kelsey Googe. I am a seed coach with Hamilton County. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks for winter break and give you some insight into what the district does around supporting the whole child and all of our students. So, of course, our mission and vision, we create pathways for bright futures for all of our students by equipping them with skills, knowledge, and supports required to realize their full potential, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. So our SEED department, it actually stands for Social Emotional Academic Development. And our job is to create and integrate sustainable, high quality processes to improve students in and out of school outcomes. We recognize that our students are much more than a test score or the academic work that they do. And so we're here to support the personalization side of our students, the connections they're making with each other, with you, with their teachers, and with our Chattanooga community. So the way that we do that at our school level is we look at these three buckets. So of course, we've got our academic press, right? We want our students to be prepared for the future and for life. We're going to give them rigorous content and access to learning, but we also want to focus on the personalization side, knowing that we as human beings crave connection and community. And so we focus on that by doing student-to-student interactions. How are our kids interacting with each other? How are they supporting each other as they go through their schooling and the rigorous, life that is being in school? How are students connecting with our teachers and our staff, right? Not only for the students, but for our staff well-being as well, and creating a really true school community. And then of course, extending that outward, right? How are our students connected to the broader school community and then the outside community? And you as parents are an integral part of that process as well. So from our side, our structure kind of revolves around those things. And we're really being intentional about supporting our students, especially in these times that are looking a little bit different for everyone. But with all of that being said, we have a winter break coming up, and it's a long break. And so I'm also a parent. I have a almost 5-year-old son, and we will be on break together too. So we wanted to give you, as parents or grown-ups or guardians or whatever your role is with our students, just some tips for supporting your student over winter break. So just some benefits of a break. It can be stressful, especially trying to get everything done, trying to go to work when you have a student that's not in school. But really, there are so many advantages to a break, not only for your student, but for you as an adult as well. So it's a good time to get some rest, reset. The new year is a great time to set some resolutions if you like to do that and kind of take a look at your intentionality for the next year. I'm never a fan of resolutions, so I have a hard time keeping them myself. But it's just a time to refocus, all these great R's, right? Refresh, relax, reconnect with each other. Students they need a break, right? We need a break as well. School is challenging, life is challenging, and we all need a little bit of downtime to help relax. There's a lot going on in our life and in our world. So just trying to get our students also to rest themselves and to have some time to reset before they come back and give us their 100% absolute best in January. So some of the ways that we can do this, though, are sticking to a schedule and a routine. Try to keep bedtime and wake up time close to what they are during school hours. Now, do I expect kids to be up, as soon as the sun rises and set their alarm? No, but it makes life so much easier when we stick to kind of a sleep routine. I know when I let my son stay up late, I always think, oh, he's going to sleep in the next morning. It's going to be great. And he never does. And it just kind of throws our whole day off. So as tempting as it is to, sleep in really late or stay up really late, trying to at least keep it similar to what school is. And that also that will prepare them for when they go back in January and they're not having to readjust back to a school schedule. Another tip is to get dressed. I could live in, yoga pants all day, but it makes me feel like I have something to accomplish when I actually get up and I get dressed and I, set my goals for the day. And then go over any activities or priorities for the day. If your student is staying home by themselves and you're working, that's totally fine, but, give them some tasks to do or activities for that day so they have a purpose and they feel like they've accomplished something that day. And we had a parent question of why does my child need to be on a schedule, even a modified one? And my answer to that is just that we all crave stability and schedules as human beings. And obviously, we all have things that are going to come up and we might stay up late or wake up late, and that's totally fine. But it takes a while to establish a new habit. And our winter break is just long enough that you might get into that habit of resetting your whole internal clock. And that's just going to make life more difficult in January. So it's not, don't celebrate and don't go have fun and don't make some exceptions, but just being aware that we do have to come back to school and we want our students to be successful and not be exhausted and tired and fighting an internal clock battle with themselves. All right, so on that point, sleep and rest are so important. So a consistent sleep schedule. I really start so early. I feel like by the time I go get my son from school and go home, it's dark and we're not outside as much. So I try to turn on all of our lights in our house just to get us some brightness and some warmth, so it doesn't feel like it's just eternally dark all the time. And do a routine as a family. Not only is that great for your student, but it's really good for you, to kind of just have a bedtime routine. I stick to the same thing every night, and it really helps unwind me and get me ready, and tell my body that it's time to rest. But also, to the last point, being a parent is hard. Being a student is hard. It's all very hard. Being taking care of small children or bigger children is exhausting. And it's important that we're also modeling that for our students, right? So it is okay as a parent or a grown up, that's looking after a student, to rest as well. Breaks can be extremely busy with everything that's going on. Take care of yourself as well. And if we're telling our students that, hey, I need you to go to bed, I need you to get rest, and we're not doing that in front of them, they're going to start to wonder, well, why do I have to do it? So it's also important to take care of yourself, and get sleep and rest, and however that looks for you. Another parent question. This is a great question. Does my kid need to get extra sleep during the break just to recuperate? And my response to that is maybe, especially with the craziness of what can be the last week of school, right? There's a lot going on, and they might need a little bit of extra rest. Illness is going around, and rest can always help with that. So, they can obviously listen to their body, but also kids need more sleep than we do too, especially teenagers need a lot of sleep. So being aware too that they might need a little bit of catch up, and that's totally fine. Just as long as they're not, sleeping for 18 hours a day and not getting out of bed or doing anything active. But yeah, a little extra sleep. It's a break is a great time to get caught up on those things. All right. I also know that these things are way easier said than done. So transitioning to the next one, screen time. Screen time, I feel like we have to keep constantly coming back to our parameters around it because we have new things around us all the time. So just to normalize it, screens are normal during break. It is okay. Go easy on yourself. I beat myself up all the time over screens, and it's easy to slip into that. But also establish realistic screen limits in screen-free areas and times of your day. Even as adults, we spend a lot of times on screens, maybe for work, and then we have phones, and we just have so many iterations of that, so many different screens in front of us all the time. But it is normal, right? We're not on our normal schedule. Kids aren't getting in front of an adult all day teaching them. So it's okay, and give yourself a little bit of grace with that. But just setting screen limits. I love using timers, and it works great with younger kids, but I mean, really with older kids too. And it sets the expectation of, hey, this is your time. Use it how you want to use it, but this is your time on the screen, and then we're going to do this thing after it. And then, of course, the good old blue light advice, right? Avoid screens an hour before bed. That goes back to that just kind of bedtime routine. Even if you're not reading a story, if you have an older student or something like that, just trying to limit that, right before bed as much as possible. All right, another question. How much screen time is too much screen time? That's completely dependent on your life and your child. My pediatrician has always given us guidance around screens. That's great. I also realize that life is life sometimes. When I'm a parent and I'm sick, for example, and my son is not, and he's running around, and sometimes we just need to use the tools we have, to give ourselves a break as well. So I don't feel like there is a right answer to that question. If you are engaging with your student and they're happy and content and healthy and getting activity and sleeping well, then use your discretion as a grown up, but also making sure that we're aware of what that screen time is. and if it's productive or helpful or harmful to our students as well. All right, so building independence as well. I do not do a great job of this as a parent. I'm not going to lie. I struggle with this because it's so much easier to do it myself. However, when I think about all the things that I have to do in a day or a night, or all the things that I have to accomplish just to keep my house functioning, it's insane. So this is just a handy chart. The author is there. But, build your kids' independence. Let them do things and let them do things to help you. Because going back to taking care of yourself, right? We need help. This is a busy season. You might be traveling, you might have family, or you might just be working a lot, right? You might be in a profession that this is a busy time of year. I had a friend who was a UPS driver, and he was never home during this time because he was just always working. But have your students help out, not only for you, but to teach them that they're capable of doing these things and to give them some responsibility and ownership. All right. Movement and exercise. So I feel like we're hitting all the classics, right? Get some rest, avoid screens, move around and exercise, but they're oldies for a good reason, right? And change it up. Everyone moves differently. Stretch, dance, go outside. Um, even though it might be cold, I hear we're getting snow at the end of December, hopefully, fingers crossed. But it can look different for whatever your lifestyle is. And this is a great time to use those screens. There are so many things on YouTube now with brain breaks, guided exercise. For your older students, like yoga and stretching is a great resource, but also like I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna sound really old, but like TikTok dances and like learning things like that for older kids that they really like. That's exercise, it's movement. They're all great resources. We're fortunate also to live in a city with a lot of outdoor space. So I love all parts of the river walk, going just walking downtown. We've got great parks. I personally live near Enterprise South Nature Park. We go there a lot just to walk in the woods and kind of chill a little bit. So just making sure that we are moving our bodies at some point during the day, even if it's just a little walk or if it's a fun dance party, or if you're incentivizing your student by learning a TikTok dance with them, as embarrassing as that might be. Another parent question, how important are these life skills for school learning? And I'm assuming we're going back to this slide. So I'll go back here for a minute. When we look, which we'll talk about at the end, but when we look at a kid as like a whole individual, these skills are so important and so transferable to school, right? School is much more than just completing work. School is setting goals, and school is being responsible for completing things. And that starts in kindergarten, really pre-K, and it obviously goes all the way up to 12th grade. So by teaching our students that not only do they have responsibility for things, but also they are capable of accomplishing things that might be hard, is essential to doing well in school as well. If we don't push our students to be more independent and to really build that resilience, it's going to show as they get older, for sure. But that also goes back to this too, is just modeling that we do have different interests and different needs. So absolutely have responsibility, but also like do what you need to do for the well-being of your body, right? And move and exercise and take care of yourself. All right. So those are some tips. We kind of went through those quickly, but really just anything that's going to keep your student, they don't have to be on their school schedule, but kind of in the same realm, is going to help them really in January when they go back. If they're sleeping until 11 o'clock every day and staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning, then all of a sudden they have to be at the bus stop at 6:15. It's going to be hard for them to get back into their routine. So we're just going to take a deeper dive too into why we're even talking about these tips and tricks, why we as a district have decided to focus on this work, and kind of what it means for parents and grown-ups at home in relation to working with their student or what you might see. So there is a lot of work around this space, but there are 5 things that I'm going to talk about kind of briefly of just thinking deeper about our students. So obviously we want them to come to school and be successful. We want them to go home and make responsible decisions and be productive citizens. So there are kind of like 5 buckets we look at. So self-awareness, and that's just knowing yourself, right? Especially as kids get older, they're discovering themselves and not only their interests, but really who they are and what they value. And then being able to manage that, right? I know that I procrastinate as an adult. I know this about myself. So how am I going to manage that to be productive? Or I also know that certain things just really make me angry. Like if my partner tells me to calm down, that's just going to set me off, right? So how am I going to manage that emotion that I'm feeling in that moment? Social awareness that what I do affects other people. If I decide to, be short with my son or let my emotions get the better of me, it's going to affect him as well. And that feeds right into those relationship skills too. Even with technology, even with COVID, we are a society that relies on connections with each other, not only for our own fulfillment, but for work. I don't know very many jobs that have zero human interaction. So we're really teaching our students what relationship skills are and how to talk with each other and how to work with each other, even if we don't like each other. And then responsible decision making as well. Um, it's often an interesting conversation with middle schoolers around grades and attendance because they don't quite realize yet that does affect them in high school, or even a ninth grader versus a 12th grader, that class that they might skip or not get such a great grade in is going to affect them when they're seniors. So just making sure that we're also teaching them about what does it mean to make a responsible decision and thinking deeper about that and what they're doing. So those sound very wordy and complicated and scientific, but it's really, there's some simple activities you can do at home to kind of reinforce those deeper concepts that we're talking about. So going back to self-awareness of just knowing who you are and what you value, use emotion words with your students. Kids don't just come learning that vocabulary, right? They might know happier or mad, but do they know jealous or do they know frustrated? And just model that for them, right? When you're watching a movie or you're reading a book, hey, this character, how do you think they're feeling right now? And why do you think they're feeling that way? It just gets them thinking so they can recognize it in themselves and process it a little bit better. And help them identify strengths and weaknesses, especially with our older students. Sometimes they need some guidance around what they're good at, especially in the out of school, right? Like in school, we very clear, maybe you got an A in algebra and you got a C in Spanish, and we can do academic strengths and weaknesses, but also helping them identify what they're good at. Maybe you're really, really good at organizational tasks, right? Or maybe, speaking of teenagers, they're really, really have a big weakness in that area. And just helping talk through some of that with them of what they're good at and what they might need to improve on, because we all do need to improve on things in our own lives, even as adults. And then shifting into self-management, play games and reinforce with your student how to lose and how to win. As a teacher and as a parent, I've had so many moments where we do games on purpose because students do not know how to lose well, and often they don't know how to win very kindly either. So it is totally okay to play games and just reinforce that with them. My son loves to race. And he gets very upset when he loses. So I will intentionally beat him sometimes, say, I'm sorry you lost, I was faster. You just need to tell me good game and let's move on. But we kind of work through that at home too, because that's not something he's explicitly getting all the time. And model those strategies for your student. We get frustrated as adults. We get frustrated and sad and upset and angry. And it is totally fine to say, you know what? You have asked me for $10 for the past 10 minutes and I'm feeling frustrated, so I need a minute. That is fine to say, hey, I'm also a human and I need to manage myself right now. So that way they can see it in action too. And then role play scenarios and next steps. You came home and there's something going on at school maybe, and just talk it through with them. And how did that make you feel? What can we do to manage that situation next time? But kids don't just automatically open up a book and start reading about it and learn. They learn these kind of skills by practice and by seeing adults and other kids around them doing it. So, all right, and we got a question. How can I help your child build their self-esteem during the break? Man, that is a great, great question. And I think it goes back to those strengths, right? Giving them tasks that they can do and do well and pushing them to do it. but also just strengths and weaknesses. Like, what are you really good at? And not only tasks you're good at, but what are some qualities about yourself that, you really value? And that's not something that a lot of kids naturally think about. But, I really love how creative you are. I really love how empathetic you are. Those are some strengths I see in you. Um, Not all of our kids are the same. And a lot of our kids do struggle with anxiety or with self-esteem or self-worth, and just being really intentional to look for those spots that they have strengths in. Some of our students, just academics and straight A's is just not their wheelhouse, and that's okay. But are we giving them an opportunity to be successful somewhere else too, and to know that about themselves? Oh, another question. Trying to get a kindergartner is difficult. What are your suggestions to help them learn to self-manage? Ooh, kindergarten. That's where I'm sitting right now. With our little guys, it's the same as you would teach any skill, right? If you were to teach a kindergartner the alphabet, you wouldn't just say the alphabet one time and then expect them to know it, right? You would do it over and over and over and over again. So with our little guys that are struggling with self-management, and a lot of them are after COVID, after not being around other kids, after just being little, and growing, they don't always have those tools. So you just model it over and over again. I see you're feeling upset. What do you need? Do you need a sip of water? Right? Okay, great. And we're just going to talk about that. We're going to do it over and over and over and over again, because we have to teach self-management, same as we teach anything else. And I'm glad that kindergartners were brought up, because the whole reason we're even talking about this is those kindergartners soon turn into 18-year-olds, that soon turn into 35-year-olds and 55-year-olds and 80-year-olds, and they're living beside us and they're our neighbors. And I would much rather teach a student how to manage some big emotions that they're feeling now than have to have an interaction with that adult that's not very good at managing themselves when I'm out in my community. So it's a really important point to focus on. I'm glad that question was asked, because the more we focus on this and help them learn these skills, the more successful they're going to be as adults, and the more successful our community as a whole is going to be, because we're going to have adults that are able to manage themselves. So going on to social awareness and how it impacts other people. Kids don't know what they don't see. Gather up old toys, have them go through their clothes or toys, and have that conversation of there are people that may not have these things. Or, if there aren't a lot of things to give away, or that's not something you're interested in, just write letters and think about a local nursing home. I know if you're in a church community, there's usually a shut-in list, right, of people that may not be able to get out. And just really being intentional with our students about there are people that are different or might have a different set of needs, and what we do can help other people. Random acts of kindness is one that's been floating around for quite a bit, but I love it. Just knowing that our actions can have an impact on other people, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. Even tiny little small children can help out with this, and it gives them a sense of self-worth and feeling like they're useful and feeling like they're part of something bigger, whether that's our city of Chattanooga or our state or just our larger community. So also relationship skills, when we're talking about students and how we relate to each other. Breaks can be really isolating for us and for students, even though sometimes they're crazy. They're not seeing their normal people every day, right? They're not coming to school and seeing their friends or have those relationships during the break. So, using technology to our advantage, FaceTiming, maybe you have family across the country, or maybe there's an adult in their life that they don't get to see often. If they're older, making sure they're fostering those social connections with each other in a healthy and productive way. Completing tasks together. It can be fun, like a project or like a puzzle, that you're doing together, or it can be a project. And that goes back to one of the questions that was asked earlier about learning life skills. I'm not a very handy person, but maybe the faucet in the bathroom needs to be replaced over break, like doing that together. And that asks our students to work together with someone else, especially around a challenging task. That can be a really powerful tool. If you have a sibling in your house too, or cousins or any other kids around, let them collaborate by giving them one of those challenging tasks. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the show Chopped. They give a bunch of random ingredients in a basket. They have to cook something. and just like making sure that they have opportunities to work together with other people. And they can be fun things, but also those challenging things are really going to push them to develop those relationship skills. We had another parent question: what do I do if I notice that my child is isolating? Man, that's tough, because we have a lot of students that are in that space, especially with, again, technology, getting used to interests that are, more isolating maybe. And I think the first step anytime, and I'm saying this as a teacher, but also as a parent, is just to talk to them and ask perhaps what's going on with them. Hey, what's up? I mean, I had a lot of students when they were little, they weren't really interested in having a lot of friends, and that was okay. But I think going back to isolation, anytime that you think your student or child or any youth in your life is suffering, and maybe that isolation is affecting them and their well-being and their mental well-being, definitely time to address it in some way. So if you notice your child is isolating, again, I try having a conversation with them about it, but also just really striving to figure out their interests and how you can get them connected. We have anime groups in town and Minecraft groups. We have all kinds of resources. The library is a great resource, which we'll talk about later, around they have lots of tools like sewing machines and 3D printers and instruments, and all kinds of cool stuff. So if your child is isolating, just trying to get to the heart of maybe what's going on with them, finding something they have an interest in and fostering that. But then also feel free to reach out to some of our community resources around, counseling or something like that, if you think it's something significant that's affecting their well-being. But also just sharing some of your interests as well with them. I think often, at least as a teacher, definitely as a parent, our students don't realize that we're real formed human beings with interests too, right? Like, I'm more than just your mom. I'm a person and I like certain things. And I think there's some joy and power in sharing things that you like with your child as well, or your student. Another question: my student has been very stressed. What can I do during the break to get him to not be so stressed when school starts back? I think that definitely goes back to the root cause of that stress. Are they stressed because they're going to have to be around peers? Are they stressed because the workload is too much? Are they stressed because they're going to be out of their routine? And once you figure out kind of the source of their stress, addressing that cause, right? If it's peers, well, then talking about, hey, what are some, peers in your class that you do like, and what are some ideas you have to improve those relationships? If it's stressed about the workload, going to, we call those executive functioning tasks. Hey, maybe you need to color code your folder this year, right? Maybe we need to get a whiteboard for your room to like write down your tasks. If, the workload is too much, like, let's figure out how to best manage that. I don't do a great job of that as an adult. So giving our kids those skills. Or maybe it's stressed about a routine. With some of our younger kids, even just driving by the school every now and then over break is a reminder, or talking about, hey, remember when you go back, this is your schedule. This is what your day is going to look like. And just talking about it with them can be helpful too. All right, and the last one that we're going to talk about is responsible decision making. This is a great skill for our students to have, but it's also really difficult to teach, because developmentally kids just don't necessarily think about doing something and then the impact it's going to have after the fact, right? And that's something we have to really talk about with them and be intentional about. So give them a budget for an activity like cooking, right? The holidays, I know lots of people are cooking lots of things. Give them a budget, have them make a recipe and execute it together. I feel old by even suggesting this, but the Choose Your Own Adventure books are great. You can get them for super cheap at, McKay's or somewhere like that. And just talking about the impact decisions have on what happens next, right? And then letting kids choose their own clothes, letting them have some autonomy. I think our students often feel like there's not a lot in their control, just because, school is regimented. So let them choose their own clothes, let them choose some things and have some autonomy. Maybe you gave them 3 tasks to do for the day. Maybe they need to wash the dishes, take out the trash, and clean their room. Okay, do that at your own pace, right? Do that however it looks like for you. I'm going to give you some responsibility to do that, and make a choice around that. So really it's everything that a lot of us do every day, but we're just reframing it on these are the bigger skills that we're working on with our students. And the connection between school and home is so important because it's just going to expedite those skills that we're seeing in our kids. All right, so the important thing to remember too is you can't do all of this by yourself, right? This is a lot. Raising kids is a lot. It is hard, it's taxing, and that's on the best day with the best resources and the best people. So we also wanted to highlight some resources, not only that are available over the break, but just in general. So some engagement opportunities over break in particular. Our library is an amazing, amazing resource. They have events every single day. They have a youth space. They have a third level, I believe it's the third or fourth floor, with all sewing machines and 3D printers and instruments like I talked about earlier, a zine publishing thing, just a really cool floor with lots of opportunities for your student to just go check stuff out, right? Just go play around with stuff and figure out, hey, maybe you're going to have this really cool interest in making buttons. Just something fun to get out. Also, if it's cold or nasty outside, it's indoors. So it's a safe bet all the time. Go pick out books together. But they have a lot of great things going on. There also are some camps over the break. Some of these are fee-based camps, but they are available for families, and we can put resources there. I believe they're on the Facebook page, which we'll talk about in a minute. Also, city community development centers, even if they don't have a particular program going on for a student, they always have great resources and even just a space to be. You know, sometimes you just need to get out of the house, or you need your child just out of the house. You can do the same thing you're doing here, just get out of the house for a little bit. Those are great places for kids to go. And also, chances are they'll run into someone else they know, hopefully from school or the community, and that's going to foster some of that isolation, getting rid of that we talked about earlier. There are also tons of family events, right? And we started to list some, and they're just too many. They're either that you pay or free or everything in between. So just search for events in Chattanooga on Google, on Facebook. I always go to like events this weekend, and it takes me to a Chattanooga calendar, and there's always stuff going on in all of our communities, in all areas of town. So just getting out and just doing something new as a family is really important as well, not only for them, but for you too, to just have a change of pace around the way you're interacting with your student. So a great place to find all of these things though is the Hamilton County Schools Family Resource Center Facebook page. The QR code is there, but obviously you can also find it on Facebook. They put up opportunities, community events, chock full of resources for our families, and school district updates. I'm actually currently sitting in one of our community hubs that has a washer and dryer and a care closet and all kinds of things like that. So all those really amazing resources for our families, that's the place you need to go to find something that you might need for you or your student. And the last thing we wanted to say is have a wonderful winter break. Please use some of these tips and tricks, some of these activities to work with your student, but just take the time to just rest and relax and rejuvenate and prepare to come back in January. We look forward to seeing all of them again on January 4th. Kids are just the best part. They're the best part, and we want to make sure that you as parents and communities have exactly what you need to make sure that this group of kids that's going through school right now is going to be the best community members in the future as they grow older and join us in adulthood in Chattanooga. So thank you for joining us today and your time, and have a wonderful and safe winter break.